October 31st, 2023 to order. Madam Clerk, may we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Jordan.
Here.
Councilmember Snedden.
Here.
Chair Gutierrez.
Present.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Are there any changes to the agenda?
Chair Gutierrez, no changes to the agenda.
Do we have any general public comment?
We do not have public comment.
Okay. May we have the first agenda item, please?
Subject, amendment to average unit size density incentive program expiration date.
Okay, and may we have the staff report, please?
Thank you. Good afternoon, Ordinance Committee members. My name is Allison DeBusk, and I am the City Planner. And today we are going to be discussing the AUD program trial period and its expiration date. The AUD program was adopted as a trial program, and it is set to expire on February 15th, 2024. There are two basic options to address this expiration. City Council can eliminate the expiration date completely, which would essentially make AUD a permanent program, or the Council could extend the trial period again. To give you some quick background on the AUD program itself, the concept of an AUD program was brought up in the 2011 General Plan. One of the main goals of the General Plan was to encourage smaller rental and workforce units close to transit and easy walking or biking distance to commercial services and recreational opportunities. The AUD program was officially adopted as a zoning ordinance in July 2013 as a trial program. The trial was initially set for 8 years or until the construction of 250 units under either the high or priority high density tier. The AUD program replaced variable density, and under variable density, the density is based on bedroom count within each unit. AUD allowed higher densities in certain areas, and that would be the high and priority overlay tiers. It requires inclusionary housing at the moderate income level, and it allowed some incentives such as reduced parking and reduced open yard area. An ordinance amendment requires a significant public review process. For this AUD ordinance amendment, we have the following meetings lined up. We went to Planning Commission on October 12th. Today we're at Ordinance Committee. We are scheduled for City Council introduction on November 7th. And if approved or introduced, then adoption would be scheduled for December the 5th. The ordinance would go into effect 30 days later, which in this case would be on January 4th, 2024. So back to the request at hand. Staff is recommending that the City Council eliminate the existing expiration date. Planning Commission concurred with this recommendation when they considered it on October 12th of this year. We're making this recommendation for several reasons. First, it sends a clear message to developers that the AUD program will not simply go away. Staff recently completed an AUD progress report, which looked back on 10 years of AUD projects and included interviews with applicants and stakeholders. We heard from applicants that the expiration date was one of the things they disliked the most about the AUD program. It created uncertainty and made them hesitant to submit projects to us for review. So one of the last thing we want to do is to chill housing development, and it appears as though this expiration date has done that. Our updated housing element also relies on the densities that are established in the AUD program. And importantly, we haven't heard any feedback that there's a desire to return to the variable density program. Second, it allows staff time to focus on more meaningful amendments to the multi-unit housing program. Eliminating the expiration date does not mean that we would stop working on these amendments. We intend to continue doing that regardless of whether there's an expiration date on the program. And also just to point out, going back to that prior slide that identified the public review process for an ordinance amendment, it takes a significant amount of time, even if it's a very simple ordinance amendment. We're talking about at least 4 months of actual processing time, so it's not insignificant. And finally, eliminating the expiration date would give staff the ability to work on the most relevant and impactful ordinance amendments, which may actually be outside of the AUD program. For example, if you wanted to see only increased densities if we get additional affordability, then perhaps amending the city's density bonus ordinance would be a better tool to get there. We've also talked about adaptive reuse, which is something that we absolutely want to implement, but that would be program separate from the AUD program. So basically, amendments to the AUD program may not be the best mechanism for getting at what City Council really wants to see first to truly impact our housing. And also related to that, the housing element requires a lot of implementation programs, and we want to coordinate efforts related to that to our efforts around the AUD program. The goal is to find ways to increase housing production and also housing affordability. And that concludes staff's presentation, and we're all available to answer questions. We have Ellen Kokinda and Dana Falk from the Community Development Department.
Thank you. I'd like to open it up to my colleagues for any questions for staff. Anybody? Councilmember Sneddon?
Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Best, for sending the report earlier today. That was really helpful. And I just want to highlight to the public to be seeing that as well. I'm trying to think about how to phrase this as a question. Maybe you could help me. If we extended the deadline but didn't eliminate it, would we not still be able to work on any updates over time or shift focus to other priorities for affordability by just pushing that deadline out and not making it pressing?
Councilmember Sneddon, yes, that would be possible. And I think how far that date gets pushed out would relate to how comfortable developers are and also how quickly, staff would need to go back and amend that date potentially.
Okay. And I understand we're not talking today about what those amendments to the AUD ordinance might be. It's just this deadline and how much flexibility that gives. And then in the two different dates in the report, either July 1st or 2027 or 2030 to align with the housing element. The housing element seems to make sense to me. There may be other things coming from the state that might supersede or cause us to look at it differently. Do you have input on which of those dates, if we weren't going to just eliminate the deadline?
Councilmember Sneddon, yes, if we're not going to eliminate the deadline, then staff's recommendation would be to align with the housing element.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Anybody else? Okay. Do we have any public comment on this issue?
Chair Gutierrez, we do not have public comment.
Okay. Councilmember Jordan?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll lead up. So I would imagine the discussion here or at council is going to be extend or eliminate. So, and I've seen some chatter in letters about we should never eliminate because then staff won't do their work. But I think that's kind of not a good look. It's like a no confidence vote in our what we say we're going to be doing. So I'm going to support eliminate. I think the improvements we all know about, and I may even pontificate about here briefly. They're coming, and they're going to come at the speed they can come based on the direction you get from council and also the staff resources. I mean, there's plenty of work to be done, not a lot of resources to do it. And so we can pontificate about putting an extension date versus eliminating all we want to on it, but if somebody's not coupling that together with the resources to do the work during the extension period, which don't, those resources don't exist now, then we're just, kicking the can down the road, to use that off-beaten phrase. And then you add into that, into that mix that, every once in a while the governor signs 52 bills in a week, and whatever you're working on at that time goes to heck, and you get to start working on the 52 new bills to try and figure out where you are, and nobody even knows where we are treading water in that at any given point in time. So there's, you don't ever get to take your breath. So I'd just like not to have it looming out there as another threat to the dynamics of what staff is working on. That said, as the Community Development Director knows, I'm like a thorn in his side on, things that need to be done and will continue to be. And we talked about some of these the other day at the LDT, the hearing too, and I'm sure you've seen like League of Women Voters has other than their bullet on extend, don't eliminate. Their other points are kind of in line with mine too, and just, I'm just, some of mine, I'll just repeat them from the other day, and these are things that I think are so complicated in today's dynamic and always changing because of the threat or the actual legislation that comes from the state, that we need to sit down and have a big picture conversation on how the political things we say end up being something we do in this shifting sand kind of thing, because it's not really happening now. But some of those things for me are a better inclusionary fee structure, increases in density allowances and or density minimums, super incentivizing targeted rental housing. So I don't mind the rental housing being built. In fact, the AUD program was not put in place to build low-income housing. It was put in place to build other housing than that. But we obviously need the low-income housing. So what is it that we can do to make that the choice of a developer rather than not affordable housing? And then resolving the dual zoning of hotels and multifamily residences. Those are kind of tops on my list. And I'm totally, incoherent on how that all works in with the choices you can make on bonus density locally versus what the state says, and probably 10 other or 20 other things that you guys would know about that I'm not conversant in much anymore. And so I think I mentioned this last week. I think it's time to figure out how to get a work session, either council and staff or council, planning commission and staff, to where we can actually sit there and ask questions and get answers as we try and work on what we want to suggest and elevate to a priority. It seems like we're just playing catch up too much, way too much catch up. So I'll be happy to support the staff recommendation today.
Thank you, Mr. Jordan. Ms. Sneddon?
Thank you. And I just want to be really clear about why I will be supporting aligning with the housing element timing for 2030. I agree that adaptive reuse, affordability, adjusting density bonus, that these are where the priorities need to be, and we've put a lot into the housing element to try and support and come up with sort of other programs or ideas to make those happen. And it seems to me that eliminating the deadline for me would be an endorsement of the program itself, and I'm not right there. When I read the progress report, what I see is all the ways that it isn't creating affordability by design, and I don't really want so much energy going into tweaking that program and trying to make it work, especially when some things aren't clearly defined or have been sort of needing for adjustments, like the community benefit designation. That's one. 100% affordable housing projects being priority. So for me, I think we need sort of an entirely different shift in programmatically what we're looking at. I'm fine with the AUD program continuing on for what it is, but I don't think it by itself is a solution. So for me, I would think extending it to align with the housing element update when we're sort of looking at all programs together and how they're performing as a portfolio. But I appreciate the recommendation. I can understand that developers may not have as much confidence in it. But also, to me, I think that might be okay if they're also looking to, well, what other programs are we maybe trying to promote or get going? So I'm supportive of continuing it, but not without a deadline. And the one I would recommend would be to align with the housing element.
Okay, so Councilmember Jordan, did you make a motion?
Okay. I'll move the staff recommendation of eliminating the end date.
Okay, is there a second? I will second that so that we can have an open discussion with the rest of council. All right. With that, may we have the motion read back to us, please?
Moved by Councilmember Jordan, seconded by Chair Oscar Gutierrez, that the ordinance committee, you're going to review and recommend to City Council proposed amendments to Santa Barbara Municipal Code Sections 30.20.030, 30.25.030, 30.30.30, 30.140220, 30.150010, 30.150040, and 30.150050 to eliminate the expiration date from the average unit size density incentive program. You ready to take a vote? And the vote passes 2-1.
Okay.
Net and dissenting.
With that, I adjourn this meeting.
You're giving me wind and rain.